And the state may call its next witness.
Yes, so people say the Florida call Mark Chapman.
That evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And you may inquire of the witness.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Can you state your name for the record and spell your last name, please?
Sure, Mark Chapman, Chapman.
Okay. And Mr. Chapman, what do you do for a living?
I am a firearms examiner.
Okay. And where do you work at?
I work at the Indian River Crime Laboratory here in Fort Pierce
Okay. And how long do you work there?
since February of 2005.
Okay. And do you also have experience doing tire impression comparisons?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and describe that experience to the jury, please.
Sure. In October of 1999, I was hired by the Indiana State Police Laboratory in Indianapolis, Indiana, as an IBIS technician. That's a computer database for firearms components. I worked at that capacity until January of 2004, and that's when I began training to become a firearms examiner. And that training lasted until January of 2005. I was hired by the crime laboratory here in Fort Pierce in February of 2005. And I continued as solely a firearms examiner until 2008. And at that point, I was accepted into the Footwear and Tire Track training program. It was over in Largo, Florida at the National Forensic Science Training Center. And the training was provided by Ron Smith and Associates. So an individual from their company came and taught the class. And essentially it was set up with a combination of in-class meetings and then remote working back at the laboratory. So we would meet up for a total of 4 weeks during the whole course. And we went over collection, preservation, documentation, comparisons, and courtroom testimony, all related to footwear and tire track evidence. I think it totaled about 400 hours in all, and in July of 2009, the training was complete. And then before I was allowed to perform casework at the laboratory, I had to be competency tested. So that's basically, I was provided with mock cases essentially that are footwear and tire track related. I had to work the cases and successfully complete those before I was cleared to work actual evidence casework.
Okay. And tire track evidence, go ahead and explain that in a little bit further detail. What is the purpose of that?
So for a tire track exam or comparison, the idea is they're trying to compare an unknown to knowns that are provided. So the unknown would be the track at the scene. So a tire leaves an impression at the scene. It could be in the dirt. It may be on the pavement. That is somehow collected by the agency. And in the process, if it's done properly, they'll photograph the impression if they're going to take photographs of it with a scale in the photograph. And I'll talk about why that's important later. So that's submitted. So that's your unknown. And basically what that means is at the scene, and when it's given to me, I don't know the origin of this tire impression, right? It's just left at the scene. So what the agency will do is if they find a suspect vehicle, typically they would roll the tires themselves. So essentially you would impound the vehicle, and then there's different ways to do it, but the most common way is to get pieces of mat board or like really dense cardboard, and you would ink the entire circumference of the tire, and then you roll the tire across the mat board, and it leaves an impression. It's kind of like a stamped impression, but you're rolling the entire circumference, and you get the impression on the board, and then those boards would be submitted to the laboratory. So I have my knowns. So I have test impressions from the vehicle tires. So we know what vehicle those tire impressions came from, and I'm asked to compare it to the unknown, the photograph from the scene. So what I do is I take the image that's given to me, and with that scale, what I can do is then I can print that photograph life size. So I put it into a photo editing software, and I basically tell it to, if I say this is an inch, then change everything to 1 inch. So when I print it, that tire impression, that photograph of the tire impression is the same size as it was when it was taken at the scene. And this allows me to compare it to the knowns. And those are life size as well. They're taken directly from the tire, right? So what I would do first with a comparison is I'm going to look for class characteristics. And class characteristics are characteristics that I can use to either include that unknown impression or exclude. With tire, class characteristics would be the width of the tire. the number of ridges and grooves. So ridges is the part of the tire where the tread element exists, and in the space between is the groove. So some tires may have 4 ridges and 3 grooves. Some may have 5 ridges and 4 grooves. And the width of the tire will change, and then the shape of those elements within the ridges are different shapes. So those are just class characteristics. So for example, if you went and took your car to get new tires, you're going to get 4 the same tire. They're all going to be the same class, right? They're going to be the same size, same width, and they'll all have the same tread elements. Let's say, to give you an example of a class difference, let's say you've got your full-size pickup truck, and then you have a compact car. They're going to have very different size tires, right? So those are different class tires completely, just solely based on the width of the tire. So that's what I look at first. I have to see, okay, do these class characteristics match up between the unknown and the known? And if they do, then I would take one step further and look for individual characteristics. But if they do not, then I could exclude the tire if the class was different.
Okay. And how many tire track comparisons have you done over the course of your career?
But the tire track examination was sunsetted a few years back, so I think I did a total of about 60 to 70 comparisons.
Okay. Have you ever testified in court regarding tire track comparisons?
Yes.
How many times?
It's only been probably 2 or 3 times now.
Okay. And have you, did you conduct a tire track comparison, in this case, the state of Florida versus Jose Soto-Escalera?
Yes.
Okay. I want to show, if we could publish state 62. We're looking at state 62 and then 63. Okay. Do you recognize those photos?
Yeah, so that's a copy of the photograph that I used to conduct my comparison.
Okay. So that's your unknowns, correct?
Correct, yes.
State 62 and 63.
Yes.
Okay, and I want to show you what has already been entered into evidence as states 1 through 6. You recognize those?
Okay, I'm gonna just look at my markings.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
On the outside of each of the packages, there's the lab number, the item number, and my initials. So inside would be the mat board containing the known tire impressions.
Okay, and are these tire impressions that were taken from a silver Dodge Ram?
I couldn't tell you where they were taken from. They were submitted to the laboratory.
Okay.
And that's all I can say.
So you get these tire impressions and then you compare it to the unknowns, is that correct?
Correct.
And describe in specific detail your comparison. I know you touched on it a few minutes ago, but if you can go ahead and describe in specific detail your comparison.
Sure. So as you can see, there's a scale in the photograph. So what I did was I tightened it. I get rid of basically all the extra gravel and grass that doesn't contain the impression. And then I adjusted it to life size. And then I actually printed it onto a piece of acetate, clear acetate. So you have a transparency type comparison. It was what's going to happen. So you have the unknown on the clear acetate. And what I did was I laid it over top the inked impressions on these mat boards. And so initially I have to look to see if class is in agreement, right? And in this case it was not. So it was a different size. The width was different. The known tire impressions are wider than the unknown impression.
Okay, meaning that the vehicle that left these impressions right here is excluded.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is it a better way to say excluded than the vehicle that left these impressions did not leave those tire tracks?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
No cross-touch, thank you.
May Mr. Chapman be released from his subpoena at this time?
He may.
Any objection to releasing him?
No objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. You're released from your subpoena. You're free to stay or leave as you wish.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor.